Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel. Limud Hashem. Today, we will learn Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today on the very last word in the Shulchan Aruch on Nun Hey Amud Beis, the words of the Ramah that begin with the word Hagah. Our learning should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanesunim Atzaru B'Shivya, Ha'imdim Bein Bayom Ubein Bayabasha, Hamakay Mirachem Alehem V'Yitzeim Yitzar L'Rvacha Me'afela L'Oira U'Mishibed L'Geula Hashta Bagolo V'Zman Kariv and Amar Amen. Our learning should be a schus for Shalema for Tzvi ben Leah Miriam, and our learning should be a schus for Yisrael ben Rachel Yonason ben Michal and Yoel ben Michal. The Rebbeinu Shalom should watch over them, together with all of our brothers and sisters that find themselves in harm's way. B'chol Makom Shehem. So, we are here in Siman Reish Ayin Vav, and we are in the midst of Sif Aleph. Very, very fascinating Siman, and there is a lot in this Siman that is very negeya halacha l'maisa. However, the complexities involved in connecting the exact halachas that we're learning here inside to shilos of l'maisa, very, very complex. There's a lot of nuance over here, and I would caution everybody that as we go through these halachas, be very careful how you draw conclusions, halacha l'maisa. If it comes up a shaila negeya l'maisa, you have a situation where you have an Eina Yehudi doing malacha on your behalf in any way, please make sure to go bring your shaila to a competent Rav, ask a Rav for a psak. Remember, we're doing a Dirshu Mishnah Berurah here, and we can only do what we do. We have already, my Dirshu Mishnah Berurah here is from the lengthiest Dirshu Mishnah Berurah shiurim that are out there. There's a limited scope to what we could do over here, and I'm very, very nervous always of people going ahead, drawing conclusions, and becoming their own poskim and paskening halacha l'maisa. So there's a lot of complexity here, a lot of layers, a lot of nuance. What this shir does is it educates you as to what the problems are. It educates you as to what the issues are, so that you understand what's at play, and you know how to go ask a shaila. You could recognize something, and you could say, hey, wait a second, that's a shaila. I remember learning about this in the Mishnah Berurah shir. This is a shaila. I have to go ask a Rav. Okay, so far over here in Siman Reish Ayin Vav, we're learning the halachas about an Eina Yehudi doing malacha for a Yisrael on Shabbos. Now, there are two distinct halachic issues when it comes to an Eina Yehudi doing malacha for a Yisrael on Shabbos. One halacha is the halacha of Amir La'akum that we spent so much time on in the beginning of Chelik Gimel, and that is a Yisrael is not allowed to ask or instruct an Eina Yehudi to do malacha for him on Shabbos. The pasuk says, "Kol malacha lo yeyasa bahem." It's not only kol malacha lo yisaseh, it's not only that you're not allowed to do malacha, kol malacha lo yeyasa bahem, the Torah Kedosha says. We don't want malacha to be performed on Shabbos, on Yom Tov. That pasuk happens to be by Yom Tov. That pasuk happens to be by Pesach. So, not only are you not allowed to do malacha, you're not allowed to have an Eina Yehuda do malacha for you. That's one isser. That's the isser of Amir La'akum. But then there's another one, and that is that let's say you do not instruct or ask an Eina Yehudi to do malacha for you on Shabbos, but the Eina Yehudi comes, and the Eina Yehudi of his own volition does malacha for you on Shabbos. So you're sitting in a dark room, and the very friendly Eina Yehudi comes, and the very friendly Eina Yehudi goes ahead, and he lights a ner for you. So that's how we started off Siman Reish Ayin Vav Sif Aleph over here. Eina Yehudi shehidlik es haner b'shvil Yisrael. If an Eina Yehudi came and he lit a ner, which is an Isser Daraisa, it's Meleches Isser Daraisa, the Isser of Havara, Mavir, lighting a fire on Shabbos. If an Eina Yehudi comes and he lights a fire for you on Shabbos, he lit it for you. He lit it for Yisrael. That ner is Aser Bahana. The one who the Nachri lit it for is not allowed to get Hana from that Ner. No other Yisrael is allowed to get Hana from that Ner. Why is that? So the Mishnah Berurah told us in yesterday's shir that this is an Issa D'Rabbanan. The Chazal made a siyag l'Torah. They made a fence around the Torah. What they did was they said, if we're going to allow a situation where if an Eini Yehudi lights a Ner for you on Shabbos, we're going to allow you to have Hana from that Ner, then Yidden are going to come to ask Einam Yehudim to do malacha for them on Shabbos. If the halacha is that if an Eini Yehudi does malacha for you on Shabbos, you're allowed to get Hana from that malacha, then very quickly people are going to come to go ask an Eini Yehudi to do malacha for them. So what Chazal said was, we're going to be misakein that if an Eini Yehudi does do malacha for Yisrael on Shabbos, the Yisrael is not allowed to get Hana from that malacha. Now, a Yisrael won't come to ask an Eini Yehudi to do malacha for him, because even if he gets the Eini Yehudi to do malacha for him, the malacha is going to be aser b'hana. We saw yesterday that when it comes to this halacha, there's a chiluk between malacha daraisa and malacha d'Rabbanan. If the Eini Yehudi does something like lighting a ner, that's an issa daraisa. If he does an issa daraisa on behalf of Yisrael, then the resulting malacha is aser b'hana, side to the one that he did it for, side to anybody else. No Yisrael is allowed to get hana from that malacha. But if what the Eini Yehudi does is only an issa d'Rabbanan, so for example, an Eini Yehudi brings a package from outside of the Tchum, if transporting the package had nothing to do with transporting it in Rishus Harabim Daled Amos, that's a daraisa. If it's only a shaila of Tchum, that he brought it from outside the Tchum, we paskin that the issa Tchumin is an issa d'Rabbanan. In that case, only the one who he did it for is not allowed to get hana. So the one who he did it for would not be allowed to use that package. But another Yid could use the package, because in that case, the malacha done by the Eini Yehudi was only a d'Rabbanan, it was not a daraisa. Then we saw another halacha yesterday, and that is, what if the Eini Yehudi does the malacha, he lights the ner, but he doesn't do it on behalf of the Yisrael. He does it for himself. So an Eini Yehudi came into a room, and it was dark in the room. So he lit an air. Why did he light an air? He lit an air because he wants to write an email. He lit an air because he wants to write a book. He needed the light. So he lit it for himself. He didn't light it for the Yisrael. He did it completely for himself. Okay? The Mechaber said, if an Eini Yehudi lights a light for himself, then we're not going to aser it. We're not going to say that now Yisrael's not allowed to get hana from that light. Why should we? The Issa D'Rabbanan doesn't apply over here. The Issa D'Rabbanan applies when an Eini Yehudi does the malacha for Yisrael. Then Chazal said we have to aser it. Otherwise, the Yisrael might come to ask the Eini Yehudi to do it. But over here, he didn't do it for the Yisrael. He did it for himself. So there's no reason to aser it. How about if the Eini Yehudi does the malacha for Yisrael, but he's doing it for Yisrael that he's allowed to do it for? He does it for a chayla. He does it for an ill person. Now the halacha is you're allowed to do a mir la'akum for an ill person. So in this case, the Eini Yehudi did malacha for Yisrael on Shabbos, but it was ba'ofen heter. He was allowed to do it. So now again, the Issa D'Rabbanan doesn't apply. What are we protecting against? You're allowed to ask an Eini Yehudi to do malacha on behalf of a chayla. So there's no need for the Issa D'Rabbanan. So again, if an Eini Yehudi lights a ner for a chayla, then any Yisrael is allowed to get hana from that ner, because this was done beheter. This wasn't done be'isser. Okay, against that backdrop, we pick up here the last word on Nun Hamid Beis, Hagah. Now turning to Nun Vav, Amud Aleph says the Rabbah, Mihu. How about another case? Im asa eino Yehudi bebeis Yisrael midaitoi. Let's say an Eini Yehudi comes and he does malacha for a Yid, but the Yid didn't ask him. He does it midaitoi. He does it of his own volition, but he's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for the Yid. So a Nachri came in to your house, and for some crazy reason, the lights in your house are off. I don't know what happened. There was a blackout before Shabbos. All the lights went out. And now, even though the power came on, for some reason in your house, the lights didn't go back on. So everything in your house is off. And your house is choshech va'afela. It's pitch black in your house. Now, your friendly neighbor, Ein Yehudi, walks into the house, and he sees that you're sitting in the darkness. So he says, come on, I'll turn on the lights for you. I know it's your Sabbath. You can't turn on the lights. I'll turn on the lights for you. He's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for you. But you didn't ask him to. He did it of his own volition. That's what the Ramah means. He did it midaitoi. He did it on his own. So again, says the Ramah, Im asa Ein Yehudi bebeis Yisrael midaitoi. If the Ein Yehudi came and he did malacha in the Yisrael's house of his own volition, but he did it for the Yisrael. So now we have a problem. This is a case where the Yisra D'Rabbanan l'chayra does apply. If we're going to allow you to get hana from the malacha that the Ein Yehudi did for you, so then another time you might ask the Ein Yehudi to do malacha for you. So in this case, the Yisra D'Rabbanan seems to apply, and there's a very strong reason why we should say that you're not allowed to get in any hana from the malacha that the Nachri did. But now let's try to put this into play. So the Ein Yehudi came into your house, and of his own volition, he went ahead and he lit a ner for you. If we're going to tell you that you're not allowed to get any hana from that ner, what are we telling you? We're telling you that you have to leave the house? Bal karchai, against your will, you're going to get hana. The fact is that there's a lamp lit in your house, and it's throwing light. It's illuminating the room. So every time you get up to walk to the refrigerator, you're getting hana from that ner. And that ner was lit by an Ein Yehudi for you. So are we going to aser it? If we aser it, what are we telling you? You're not allowed to live in your house? You have to walk out of your house? Says the Ramah, we're not going to do that. The Yid doesn't have to leave the house. And this is true despite the fact that you are going to get hana from that ner. Or if it was a Medura, it was a warming fire, you're going to get hana from it. It's going to warm up the house. So you are getting hana from a malacha that an Ein Yehudi did for you. But that's okay. We're makel in this case. We're not going to tell you. We're not going to throw you out of your house. We're not going to tell you that you have to leave your house. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't ask the Ein Yehudi to do it. You didn't do any Amir al-Akum here. He did it of his own volition. Now let's see the Mishnah Berurah, where the Mishnah Berurah does a little qualifying of this halacha. Mishnah Berurah is cutting Yud Aleph. Im also. First of all, says the Mishnah Berurah, understand. Hainu dafka achar shekvar asa ha'ein Yehudi. This is only post facto. This is only b'di'evet. The Ein Yehudi came in, and before you had a chance to say anything, he went ahead and he lit the ner. So now, what are you going to do? We're not going to throw you out of the house, b'di'evet. Or ma yesh lo Yisrael asos. What should this poor Yid do? He didn't do anything wrong, and what should he do now? A guy came in and lit an ner in his house. We're going to throw him out? We're not going to be matriach you to leave your house on Shabbos because a guy came in and lit a lamp. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, but you need to tell the Ein Yehudi, don't do this again. It's my Shabbos. Do me a favor. If this ever happens again, you walk in and you see me sitting in the dark, don't light an ner. I can't have you light an ner for me on Shabbos. Aval, however, Im nistamin li Yisrael shara be'ez sha'en Yehudi roitza lahadlik b'shviloi. Let's say you see the Ein Yehudi going to the kitchen to take the matches. You see the Ein Yehudi coming with the box of matches, and the Ein Yehudi saying, listen, you're sitting here in the dark, I'll light a fire for you. Oy lasais hamadura, or he's going to light the fireplace, tzarich limchais biyadai. You need to stop him. So don't think that, oh, Baruch Hashem, my friendly Ein Yehudi came in and he sees I'm sitting in the dark. He's going to take care of me. Baruch Hashem, I'll have light. I'll have a fire in the fireplace. No. If you see him going to do malacha on your behalf, you need to stop him. You have to object and tell him not to. Afilu im hayazeh bebeisai shel Ein Yehudi gam kein tzarich limchais. The Mishnah Berurah says, I'll give you even another case. Let's say this is not happening in your house. Let's say you're staying by an Ein Yehudi, and you have a room, and you have your own lamp. You came with a lamp. You have your lamp with your oil, with your wick, sitting in your room, but you didn't light it before Shabbos. And now the guy wants to come in and light it. Kevan Nerva Eitzim Shel Yisrael. In this case, since you're the owner of the lamp, and you're the owner of the wood and the wick and everything else, you have to stop him. Gam kein tzarich limchos. Kevan Nerva Eitzim Shel Yisrael. Va'afilu im dasa Yisrael lotzes achakach lecheder acher shelo yehana me'aner gam kein tzarich limchos. The truth is, even if the Eini Yehudi is going to light the fire, but you don't plan on staying in the room, so you say to yourself, you know what? I'll let the Eini Yehudi light it. What's the big deal? I'm not staying in the room anyway. Gam kein tzarich limchos. You still have to be moicha. V'chosh kein beveis Yisrael. Certainly if it's being done in your own house. V'em Eini Yehudi oisa bal karchai. Now, how about if the Eini Yehudi comes and he sees you sitting in the dark, so he goes to light the ner, and you're telling him, no, don't light the ner. And the Eini Yehudi says, dreminish king cup. I know, it's your Sabbath. I'm lighting it anyway. You could protest as much as you want. I'm going to light the ner. Says the Mishnah Berurah, chayiv legarshay mi beisai. You need to get up and you need to chase him out of your house. Memnei chil Hashem. Because if you're going to allow him to light the ner in your house, it's going to be a chil shem shamayim. People are going to see outside Friday night that your house was choshech v'afela, and now suddenly they see that somebody lit neris in your house. They're going to be choshed that you did amir la'akum on an issa daraisa, and you had a guy light candles in your house. It makes no difference if the Eini Yehudi is doing it for nothing. Or you made him a kablan. Even a kablan is not allowed to do malacha in a Beis Yisrael. Right? The auto mechanic who's a kablan is not allowed to fix your car in your driveway. He's not allowed to do that. He's not allowed to do malacha beBeis Yisrael. He's cutting your base. The Ramah's case over here was if the Eini Yehudi came and he lit a ner beBeis Yisrael. Says the Mishnah Berurah, hold it. Lav dafka. When the Ramah says that this case and this halacha is specific to if the Eini Yehudi is lighting the ner in your house, lav dafka. This same halacha would apply. Let's say you go to a hotel and you're staying in a hotel. Now the hotel is not your house. The hotel is a base Eini Yehudi. It belongs to a guy. 99% of the time anyway. Now, again, what's the kula that the Ramah is saying here? The kula that the Ramah is telling us is, you're not allowed to get hana from a ner that an Eini Yehudi lit for you. If he lit it for you, you're not allowed to get hana from it. The truth is, that's true even if he does it of his own volition. But we're saying a kula. If he did it of his own volition and he did it in your house, we're not going to throw you out of your house. We're not going to tell you you're mechuyev to leave your house on Shabbos because an Eini Yehudi lit a ner of his own volition in your house. Says the Mishnah Berurah, it doesn't only mean that we're not going to throw you out of your own house. If you have a hotel room for Shabbos, that's your house for Shabbos. We're not going to throw you out of your hotel. We're not going to say you have to be a homeless person on the street now for Shabbos because the Eini Yehudi lit an air in your hotel room, even though it's not your house, but for Shabbos it is your house. We're not going to throw you out of that house. Now, I told you at the beginning of this year, be very careful with these halachas halacha lamaisa. So, for example, let me ask you right now the following shayla. You're in a hotel, and it's Friday night, and housekeeping came into your hotel. You went down to daven, and while you were by davening, housekeeping came into your hotel room. And the owners of this hotel are very, very makpid on wasting electricity. So the housekeeping staff is under very, very strict instructions. If there's nobody in the room when you leave the room, turn off every single light in the room. So now, you come into your room Friday night and it's choshech v'afela. The bathroom light is off, the closet lights are off, the room lights are off. Now you're happy that the room lights are off because you want to sleep. But the Beis HaKisei lights are off. And you don't even have a closet light on that you could open a door and get some light in the room. You don't have any light. Okay? Now, again, housekeeping knocks on the door, and the housekeeper walks in and says, "Oi, I see that the bathroom light is off. I'll help you out. I'll go turn it on. Okay, that's an Ein Yehudi turning on a light for you on Shabbos. Are you allowed to get Hana? So a simple reading of what we've read here so far, you would say, well, I mean, the first thing is, the Mishnah Berurah just told me I have to be moicha. If I could catch the housekeeper before she turns the light on, I have to object and I have to say, no, do not turn it on. Right? Now, if she goes in and turns it on, I'm not mechuyev to leave because the hotel room is my room for Shabbos. I'm not mechuyev to go ahead and be thrown out. On the other hand, we're going to see soon that while it's true that we don't throw you out of the house, and while it's true that we let you get the hana from the light that you would get bal karchai, but you're not allowed to do things by that light that you really would not have been able to do without that light. So do we have to start clearing that shaila? So first of all, I just want to show you how many layers there are here. Nowadays, we virtually don't have incandescent bulbs. Everything is LEDs, maybe compact fluorescents. That's not being madlik in there. We look at that as not being an issa daraisa. We look at that as being an issa darabanan. So right away, it's an issa darabanan, not an issa daraisa. Well, one nafkamina that makes right away is that who did she do it for? If she did it for you, maybe you're not allowed to get hana, but other people are allowed to get hana. But then there's another shaila. Was the room really pitch black without the light? If the room wasn't really pitch black without the light, then we're not even sure how much hana you're truly getting. In other words, were you able to use the Beis HaKisei even without the light? Especially nowadays. Sometimes there are little tiny lights that are on anyway. There's the red light from the smoke detector. There's the green light on the GFI outlet. Those actually make quite a bit of light. Was the room really truly pitch black? Maybe it wasn't. In that case, the Ein Yehudi only was moisif light. They didn't create it was pitch black and no light and the room wasn't usable. Now there's light and the room is usable. Then it's debatable. Even you might be able to have hana. So there's a lot of nuances and layers over here. So when you have a shaila, you need to ask a shaila. Going to Mishnah Berurah's Katan Yud Gimel. The words of the Ramah was, what happened over here? The Ein Yehudi came and he lit the ner midaitoi, of his own volition. Explains the Mishnah Berurah what that means. Hainu shaloi tzivo haYisrael. What it means that he did it midaitoi is that he did it of his own volition. You didn't ask him to. Afa pisha oisa Ein Yehudi b'shviloi. But what is clear is that the Ein Yehudi did it for you. He didn't do it for himself. He didn't do it for anybody else. He did it for you. He saw that you're sitting b'choshech v'afela, so he went ahead and he lit a ner for you. But you didn't ask him to. He just did it of his own volition. That's the case where we have the Ramaz Kula, lo yitrichu oisai lotzais be'abayis. We're not going to be matrich you to leave your house because an Ein Yehudi came in and did malach of his own volition. Afal pisha bal karchai hunene. Even though the fact is that you are going to get hana from the light that he lit. Bal karchai, even against your will, as long as your eyes are open, you're going to derive hana from the malacha that the Ein Yehudi did. But, and here's the caveat, and here's where the Mishnah Berurah qualifies this halacha. Rak, she'aser lihishtamesh la'oiroi, davar shaloi hayayachal lasois b'loi ner. There is a limit to how much hana you're allowed to get out of the malacha that the Ein Yehudi did. So let's try to bring this down to reality. You were sitting by your dining room table, and all your lights were off. The only thing that you had was, on one end of the room, there are two Shabbos neiros that are burning. So the room is not pitch black. You could walk around the room, but could you be Mavis Sedra at the dining room table? No, you can't. It's not light enough. But trust me, Rabbi Isai, during blackouts, I remember during Hurricane, I'm thinking right now it was Sandy, not Irene. I think it was during Sandy. I had a blackout by me for like 3 days. I prepared my daf yomi shir using neiros. So, amoritz that I am, I thought that if I take my wife's two tall Shabbos lichtelach and I put in candles, that'll give me enough light to prepare my daf yomi shir. No way. I had to take the two candlesticks. Then we have a little candelabra with 5 a 5-light one. I had to take the 2 and the 5, and I think I took another 2, and I had to light them all in order to have enough light for me to be able to prepare the Daf Yomi share. It takes a lot of neiros in order to be able to prepare the Daf Yomi share. So if all the lights at your house are off and all you have is 2 Shabbos lichtalach on one side of the room, you're not being Mavasedra by your dining room table. Now the guy comes in, he says, "Oi, you're sitting b'chayshich v'afela." He puts on the lights. Okay. I didn't ask him to. He did it for me, but I didn't ask him to. He did it of his own volition. Chazal, the Ramah says, we're not going to throw you out of your house. So fine, I could stay in my house. I am going to be nana from the light. All right, you're going to be nana from the light. But how much are you allowed to be nana from the light? Are you allowed to sit down now by the dining room table and be Mavasedra? No. Because now you are actively taking the benefit of the malacha that the Ein Yehudi did. The kula of the Ramah is, we don't throw you out of your house, and we allow you to enjoy the benefit that you're going to receive bal karchai. Against your will, you don't want it, but there's nothing you can do. You're living in the house. There's a light on. I'm going to get hana from it. There's nothing I can do. But are you allowed to actively go ahead and take hana from the light that he lit and do something that you would not have been able to do if he didn't light it? Be Mavasedra? No, that you can't do. Or if the Ein Yehudi lit a warming fire, you can't consciously now go sit down by the warming fire to warm up. Whatever hano you get memela, it happens to be that the room now is 3 degrees warmer than it was before he lit the lamp. So what should I do? There's nothing I could do. I'm not mechuyev to strap ice cubes on my wrist so that I should feel cold anyway, and I'm not mechuyev to leave the house. But you want to go sit down by the fire and say, geschmack of fire, I'll be warm? That you're not allowed to do. Avalim tzivom etchila. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, having said this whole kula of the Ramah, what if you were over on Amir La'akum and you asked an Ein Yehudi to light an air, or you asked the Ein Yehudi to light a Madura? Then says the Mishnah Berurah, Avalim tzivom etchila. You were over on Amir La'akum. Tzarech lotzei sachakach be'abayis. Get out of the house. If you were over on Amir La'akum and you told the guy to go light the neiros, get out of the house. Now you're not allowed to have any anah. And yeah, we're going to throw you out of your house. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting your dalit. Ein ha-Yisrael tzarech lotzeis. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Hu adin shein tzarech lapich panav me'aner. Not only you're not allowed, you don't have to leave the house. You might think, okay, I could stay in the house, but maybe I have to turn my face away from the neiros. Maybe I have to cover my eyes to limit the amount of anah that I get. Says the Mishnah Berurah, no. V'uadin shein tzarech lapich panav me'aner. You don't have to turn away from the ner. Elim kein sheroitz alasis midas chasidus. Kein kasav ha'magen Avram b'shem ha'beis Yosef. The Magen Avram brings down from the Beis Yosef that it's possible that there's a midas chasidus. What's the midas chasidus? The midas chasidus is not that you should limit how much hana you get from the ner. The midas chasidus is turn your face away from the ner in order to show that I didn't want this. This was not done midaiti. This wasn't done for me because of me. It was done by the Ein Yehudi of his own volition. I didn't want it, so I'm turning my face away. It's mashma from the Rashba that he was taka machmer that way. Now we go to the second line in the Shulchan Aruch Sif Beis. So, we've seen that if the Ein Yehudi lights a ner for you, even though you didn't ask him, but he lit it for you, you're not allowed to get hana from it. Now, we just saw a kula. If he did it on his own, you're not mechuyev to leave your house. You don't have to go out of your house. But like this, if an Ein Yehudi lights a ner for you on Shabbos, you're not allowed to get hana from it. Okay. Then we saw, also in Sif Aleph, if the Ein Yehudi did it for himself, then you are allowed to get hana from it, because he didn't do it for Yisrael. So there's no reason for the Gzeira D'Rabbanan. He didn't do it for a Yid. The whole underpinning of this Isser is the Gzeira D'Rabbanan, that if an Ein Yehudi does the malacha for a Yid, we don't let a Yid get enough from it, because we're afraid if we allow you to get enough from it, then next time you're going to ask the Ein Yehudi to do it. That's the underpinnings of this halacha. Now, says the Mechaber, but how about this case? Yisrael ve'enam Yehudim she'esebu yachad. You have Yidden and Einam Yehudim sitting together in a room. The Hidlik Ein Yehudi ner. And the Ein Yehudi gets up and says, we could use some light. So he goes ahead and he lights an air. So now, are you allowed to get Hana from that ner? Who did the Ein Yehudi do it for? There's a gathering here. There's Yidden and Goyim. Who did he do it for? If he did it for the Yidden, then we have a problem. We have a Nachri that lit a ner for Yisraelim. That ner is Aser Bana. But if he did it for himself, or he did it for other Einam Yehudim, then the ner is mutter. How do we look at this? Says the Mechaber Yisrael ve'Einam Yehudim she'esei b'yachad. If you have Yidden and Einam Yehudim sitting together, the Hidlik Ein Yehudi ner, and the Ein Yehudi lights a ner, it depends. Im roiv Einam Yehudim. If most of the gathering are Einam Yehudim, mutter lehishtamish la'oray, then you're allowed to use the light. Why? Because we have the right to assume that the Ein Yehudi did it for the majority of the gathering. The majority of the gathering is Einam Yehudim, so we look at it that he did it for the Einam Yehudim, and therefore it's mutter. But v'im roiv Yisrael, but if the majority of the gathering are Yidden, ayafilu mechza al mechza, or even if it's 50-50, then aser, then the ner is aser. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Tezvav. Im roiv Einam Yehudim, if the majority of the gathering are Einam Yehudim, then the ner is mutter. Why, says the Mishnah Berurah? The mistama adaita deruba kavid, because we assume that he did it on behalf of the majority. By the way, this is based on a brisa in Masechta Shabbos. It's a beferish brisa. Va'afilu imachakach nisrabu Yisrael v'nisfasvu aleihen. Says the Mishnah Berurah, this is even true. Let's say what happened was like this. The gathering was a majority Einam Yehudim. You had 10 Einam Yehudim, and you had 8 Yisraelim. So you have 2 more Einam Yehudim than Yehudim. So the halacha is the ner is mutter. So the Ein Yehudi went and he lit the ner, and now, Baruch Hashem, the Yidden are sitting and they're being Mavri Sedra La'ar. Then another Yid comes. Oh, now it's 10-9. Now another Yid comes. Mechza, Mechza. Now another Yid comes. Now the Yidden have the majority. It's 11-10. Does the ner now become Aser? Because now there's a majority of Yisraelim? Says the Mishnah Berurah, no. Even if more Yidden come now, so that now the Yidden are the majority, it's still mutter. Why? Because we go by when the malacha was done. That's what we're concerned with. When the malacha was done, he did it on behalf of the Einam Yehudim. I don't care if later more Yehudim came. The same thing would be true. Let's say there was a majority of Einam Yehudim, but then 5 of the Einam Yehudim left. So what? When the malacha was done, it was done on behalf of the Einam Yehudim. The Chayla Hipach Baroiv Yisrael. Ois Katan Tezayin. The Mechaber said Mechza al Mechza. If it's 50-50, again, it's Aser. Why? Over here, we're not going to say that he did it on behalf of Roiv Goyim. You don't have Roiv Goyim. It's 50-50. So how do I know who he did it for? Exactly. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Atam, Mishum Deleka Lameikab Aladim El Se'im B'Shvil Eini Yehudi Yavid or B'Shvil Yisrael of it. Over here we have a suffix. We don't know. We don't know how to look at it. In I believe it's Rashi on the Brisa, Masechta Shabbos says, we don't know that he did it for the Yisraelim. We don't know that he did it for the Einam Yehudim. So maybe he did it for the Yisraelim, and therefore we're going to answer it. Others say that by Mechza Mechza, he did it for both. And if he did it for both, that means he did it for the Yisraelim also. That creates a problem. You could look right away, there's a question over here. Why are we being so machmir by a suffix? For that, you could look at the Bir Halacha, Dibra Maschil, Mechza al Mechza. Now we go weiter in the Mechaber 4 lines down near the beginning of the line. Okay, so we've seen how we look at it. If it's a gathering that's a Roiv Einam Yehudim, then it's mutter. If it's a gathering that's a Roiv Yehudim, then it's Aser. If it's Mechza Mechza, it's Aser. Now says the Mechaber, but Im Yesh Haichacha, if we have a raya, we have a proof, we have a strong indication Shalitzarich Eini Yehudi Madlika, that he did it for either himself, and he's an Eini Yehudi, or for a different Eini Yehudi. Kigoyin, for example. Sha'anu Royim, we see, Shehu Mishtamish La'ira. We see that the Eini Yehudi went, he lit an air, took out a book, and started reading a book. So why did he light the nair? He lit the nair so he could read the book, right? So we have a hichacha, we have a raya, we have an indicator, a strong indicator, that he did it for himself. He lit the nair and he started reading a book. Then, Afal Pisha Rav Yisrael mutter. Then even if the gathering is Rav Yisrael, it's still mutter. Why? Because he did it for himself. So then it's not a problem. That goes back to what we learned in Sif Aleph. If a Nakri lights a nair for himself, it's mutter. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting your test. No. He's cutting your zayin. Shalitzarich Eini Yehudi. If we have a strong indicator that he did it on behalf of an Eini Yehudi, what the Bechari means to say is, Litzarich Atzmai, he did it for himself. Like he says as we go on, what's the indicator? He lit it and he started reading a book. So why did he light it? He lit it for himself. Says Mishnah Berurah weiter, or maybe there's a strong indicator that he didn't do it for himself, but he did it for another Eini Yehudi. So he came in, he lit an air, and then he handed a book to another Eini Yehudi and said, okay, now there's light, now you can read. And now the guy started reading. So okay, so there's a very strong indicator. Who did he do it for? He did it for the Eini Yehudi. Ken Kosev Hamagid Avram. Oh no, I'm sorry, I skipped. So here the Mishnah Berurah is very machmer. How about im anu yoidin sha'asa gam b'shvil Yisrael? How about if we have a strong indicator that he did it for himself? So he lit the nair and he started reading the book. But we also know that he also did it for a yid. So what would that case be? Maybe you're sitting there in the dark, he comes in, he lights a nair, takes a book, and he turns to you, he says, listen, I'm going to light an air. I want to read a book. I know that you're people of the book, so you probably want to read your books too. I'm lighting the air. So now we know that he did it for himself, but he also did it for you. So what's the halacha in that case? Says the Mishnah Berurah, in that case, we're going to be machmer. If we know that he did it for Yisrael also, aser. Kain Kasav Amagin Avram, Va'ain B'Bir Halacha Sheherachnu Bazeh, in Bir Halacha Dibra Maschil V'Im Yesh HaChacha, he goes into this at length. The Aruch HaShulchan is makel on this case. The Aruch HaShulchan says, and he brings a very interesting raya. I don't think we're going to get to it today, but we'll get to it tomorrow. I'll show you what the raya is if I remember. He brings a raya from later in this simon, the Aruch HaShulchan, that if the Eini Yehudi did it for himself and the Yid, then it's mutter. But the Mishnah Berurah rules like the Magen Avram that it is aser. Weiter, Ois Katan Yud Ches. So the Mechaber said, if we have a strong indicator that he did it for himself, what's the indicator? The words of the Mechaber were, Shanu Royim Shu Mishtamish La'ira. We see that he lit the lamp, and we see he's using the light right away. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Katan Yud Ches Shu Mishtamish Hainu Miyad. What does it mean that we have a strong indicator that he lit it for himself? If he lights it and right away he starts using the light. But if he lights it and then he walks away and he comes back 10 minutes later and sits down and reads a book, now we don't know what he lit it for. We know that he's using the light now 10 minutes later. But it doesn't look like he lit it 10 minutes ago for now, that he would have lit it now. Why did he light it 10 minutes ago? Maybe he lit it for a yid. So then we don't know. Then if there's a Roiv Yisraelim, we have to be machmer. Ois Katan Yud Tes, if we have a strong indicator that he did it for a Yid, then even if it's a majority Yisraelim, then there is mutter. Ois Katan Yud Tes, Avapi, the Mistamik Yeshehidlik Betchila, Nami HaIkar Adaita Didei of it. Because even if there's a Roiv of Yidden, if we see that he lights the nair and he uses it miyad, we assume he lit it for himself. V'ner le'echad ner l'meya. Now, it's true that other people are going to get hana from the ner, but ner le'echad ner l'meya. Yeah, once you light a ner, it lights up the whole room. We understand that. But he lit it for himself. All of that light is for him. Because it's not that, he could have, cut down the light and made it just a personal little lamp. No, there's no such thing. Ner le'echad ner l'meya. Okay, now we go into the Ramah. You know what? I'm going to pause over here, even though we're a little bit short of the page, because the Ramah that's coming up now is a critical Ramah. This is one of the Ramahs that are referenced in Hilchos Shabbos all the time, and I don't want to break it up. I'd rather do it in one sitting, so I'm going to stop over here. Mir Hashem, next time we'll continue with the Ramah. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be begging on God's Klal Yisrael, the Ran Shem Shesen, Yeshua's Refuas Parnaset Shadunchim to all those in need. We should be zeichet to see the Bias Goel Tzedek B'Meher V'Yabeinu. Amen. Be well.